Welcome to the beautiful chaos. Today, I have a great guest speaker for our episode, Fuel for Life, Nutrition and the Power of Real Food. I have with me Meri Galvin from Savage Strong Fitness in Salmon, Idaho, and Savage Fit, her online coaching app. She is a certified nutrition coach, so I'm super excited to share with her some and get some information and all the things. She helps women get strong, healthy, and confident at every age, just like me. So, Meri, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to talking to you again today.
Yeah. So and I wasn't going to tell on ourselves, but I am now
Oh,
because
okay.
we already did this once and it was beautiful and fabulous, but I forgot to press record. So here we are again today. So
Well, we're well practiced now.
we are. It's going to be twice as good.
So,
So let's talk about I just want to say that we all work so hard to build strength, but what fuels that strength? Today we're diving into the power of nutrition, not dieting to lose weight, but eating to live strong, energetic, and clear-minded. And for me, it's all about that longevity thing. So let's first talk about the processed foods and chat about some of the biggest differences that you've seen from people that have switched from, basically all processed foods to more whole nutrient dense foods.
yeah, I think when people start to really clean up their diet and make that shift, it's surprising how your body changes and how you start to feel different. A lot of times with my clients, when we make those, even if they're small changes, they start to realize, they'll say things like, "Oh man, I feel so much less bloated now than I did before. Like my thoughts are more clear, my mood is improved. You're not having those afternoon crashes that maybe, you've been experiencing where energy just like dies off." And, there's that direct correlation to the quality of food that we're putting into our body and how our body is going to function and run. It's like any fuel that you're using in your car, for example, if you're picking from the bottom of the barrel and it's this terrible, like run down version,
Or
your
has
car's
water
not
in
going to
it.
run. Yeah, it's not going to
Water in
run
your
as
gas.
well.
Right.
Versus, when you're putting into your body what your body really needs and understands, which is those whole healthy foods, you start to actually feel different. And, it's one of those things, even in reverse, when you have been eating clean and healthy for a while, and then you have like a weekend or a day or something where you kind of, go back into that junk food eating or processed foods, which we all do because we want to enjoy life. And, there's times when it's like, yeah, I'm going to have the fun foods. Then it's like, oh man, I kind of feel terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we both had a weekend like that just last
Yeah.
weekend and I thought the same thing and I think that moment of like giving yourself that grace to have the foods that aren't the healthiest for you, it also gives you that moment to go, yeah, wow, I really feel terrible.
Yeah.
And think to yourself, okay, this is why I eat healthy. This is why I choose to eat more, nutrient dense foods.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, and I love that you mentioned that it's just we're all human, right? We all need to have moments of just eating things that we shouldn't, whether it's for comfort or just because we feel like you did finished a big competition and you were
Mhm.
like celebrating that fact of like, yeah, and I was strict and I did the things and you placed well, I hear, on
Yeah,
multi levels. So congrats to you.
you.
So
Yeah,
let's
and I for that process of going up because I just did bodybuilding, and there is in that process very little room for those extra things, and it
right,
is not what I would say balanced. It's very like it is
restrictive.
the
Yeah.
very clean foods all the time. But, also along with that, I finished my competition this weekend and it's like, yes, of course I'm going to go out to eat with friends and we're going to
Yeah.
enjoy ourselves and I'm going to pick whatever I want on the menu. I'm not doing that every day,
Right.
but a special occasion or I come back the next day and it's like I'm traveling in the car, I'm going to go into the gas station and like get the Reese's cups and I enjoyed it all. It was worth it, but let me tell you, I did not feel great. When I got home, I was like, "Oh gosh, my stomach kind of hurts." The next day, I was tired and
Oh, yeah.
but
It
yeah,
makes a difference. Well, and I noticed, so I did a cleanse and then I did an elimination diet. And as I started adding back in foods, it was crazy to me how, like, instantly within 24 hours, like I would wake up the next morning and I would have such bad inflammation. My hands would be swollen. I would
Mhm.
know, oh, okay, I
Yeah,
can't eat, of all things, peppers, bell peppers. I can't eat bell peppers because they inflame me and they're supposed to be an anti-inflammatory. But anyways, and that's a fresh food. But processed foods really get me too, and really try to avoid those because it's definitely just not worth it in my body. But sometimes you just can't help it. But so how can we help somebody to kind of get rid of the processed foods or at least limit them without feeling totally deprived? Do you have any suggestions on that?
yeah. I think really the best way to go about that if you're trying to make a shift in your diet is to I'm going to start by adding things in instead of subtracting things out. And that is just kind of a mental shift, I think, that really helps with that process so that you don't have that I'm feeling deprived or I'm being restricted and I can't have this and I can't have that. Because when that starts happening, like the more you say you can't have something, the more
You
you
want it?
actually are craving it and you want it.
Yeah, and you can't stop thinking about it. You're
Yeah,
just like,
exactly.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, but once you start thinking the other way, like what do I need to add to my plate? What do I need to add in my pantry? You start filling in and adding those healthy whole foods, things like protein, veggies, even drinking more water. Those things are going to start taking up more space, which is going to crowd out some of those other processed foods that maybe are not going to be so good for you. And rather than feeling like, oh man, I'm like taking everything away and now my plate is empty, your plate is full, you have more things to choose from. And, it's just kind of slowly kind of like push out everything else and leave your plate more balanced, more healthy for you, really.
Right. And you were telling me yesterday, because I like that you
Mhm.
brought that up, and so I don't want to lose that in this episode. You're talking about how you take that moment with your kids as well and kind of talk to them about what's on their plate, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my kids are teenagers now. They're 17. I have twins. And, so they're kind of starting to get into that spot where, I'm not the one that's fixing their plate all the time. They're starting to put together their own meals and we're all going in different directions. And so that's part of our family conversation. When they are putting their meals together, I'm talking to them about what can you add to this plate? Like, okay, you've got, the potatoes and the corn, but do you have any protein on there? Let's add some protein to your meal. I know for my daughter in particular, at breakfast time, she doesn't like a lot of certain foods, and so she's kind of picky. But, for her every morning, it's easy for her to get her carbs and it's easy for her to get fats in. Like those are foods that she likes and that are easy to find. But the protein's a little bit more of a challenge. So for her, I'm always saying, let's add a protein. Make sure you have enough protein to your meal. And at lunch and dinner, it's like, okay, do you guys have veggies? Do you have protein? Do you have balance on your plate? What do we need to add that you're missing? Rather than, oh, no, you can't eat that. We
Right.
don't want to, I think with kids, it's like you want to start that conversation about what are the good things that we want to put on our plate from an early age.
Right. Because that's what I think that it's important to kind of look at the whole picture. Like what we're talking about is properly fueling our bodies.
Mhm.
And if we can help our kids to learn those simple basic ideas of balance and making sure that they're getting all the categories they need. If you start them at a young age, then they're more than likely going to have less struggle as an adult with weight, energy, anxiety, depression, because I feel like, you know, all the processed foods that are easy to fix and usually heavily breaded, and you're going to deep fry or bake them, whatever, but it's whatever, it's just not very healthy. Um, but those things can cause anxiety and depression and things because your body doesn't know what to do with half of those things. because it's not real to it. And I think that it really is like stuffing it into things. And that's where we get, hips as saddlebags. And because it's like that nutrients that it's like, well, I don't know what this is. So we're just going to store this as fat and like wait for it to show up somewhere else.
Yeah, it's not being used other places in the body. Yep.
Right. And then you're feeling all these things, whether it's tired, depression, anxiety, whatever those things are, because you're not getting all the nutrients that your body needs. So, what are a few of your favorite simple real food swaps for busy people? Like one of mine is spaghetti squash or zucchini
Mhm.
noodles. Like I like pasta dishes, and I do one that's a Italian meatball. I take a carnivore diet, but it's a meatball with mozzarella cheese and stuff, and it's really tasty. And then I do an Alfredo sauce, and then I use the spaghetti squash
Mhm.
as my noodles. And that's one way to swap out. What are some ideas that you have?
Yeah, I think making swaps is another good way to feel like you're not depriving yourself, but you're taking one thing and replacing it with maybe a little bit better option. So it's just a way to like level it up a little bit. And, it doesn't have to be anything major. Taking the exact same food, for example, like yogurt, like you can have yogurt, but there's so many different brands out there
Oh, there is.
and they're very, very different. So, maybe instead of your regular, like full sugar added, you know, whatever brand yogurt. I'm not going to call out any brands,
Yeah.
but rather than that, swap it for a different brand that is no sugar added, Greek yogurt, which is going to have higher protein, like making those little swaps. It's still yogurt for yogurt. You can still add sweetener to it if you need to. You can add your own fruit instead of the processed fruits that are in the yogurts. That's going to be a healthier swap. And, it's not taking away yogurt, it's replacing it with a better brand. And I think for a lot of people, it's just a matter of looking at the label. And as you're grocery shopping, it's like, okay, there's the shelf full of whatever your product is. On that shelf, there's such a variance in food quality. And just I think taking a little bit of time to like flip it around, take a look at it, what's the ingredient list look like? Look
Yeah.
for the ones that have fewer ingredients, less processed things added in. You want mostly whole foods, even if it is processed, made in a factory or something. Like there's some brands that are a little bit better than others as far as what they're also adding in. And then, that added sugar, that is one that sneaks into so many foods that you would not expect that is usually unnecessary. The food itself can have sugar in it, but it's that added little extra part that they're putting in there so that it's a little bit more addictive. Makes you want to buy
Yes.
a little bit more.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
like
a new thing, isn't it, over the past few years, that added sugar, because
in
normally,
the
like,
foods.
right? That normally the breakdown is carbohydrates and then it has sugar, fiber, and now it has sugar, fiber, added sugars.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, and it is for, I guess, that addiction to keep you coming back and wanting more. And it makes you just not, it makes you eat stuff like that and then you get done and you're wanting more, or you want something sweet. It just starts this
it does. It starts that craving
domino.
and that urge to have more. And I mean, that's just part of the industry, unfortunately, is that they're trying to create highly palatable foods, things that taste really good and go down very quickly, so that you go through them more quickly, so that you're buying more, so that they can continue to make more money, which is great for their business model, but for your health, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But it's also simple things that you could do every day, adding more veggies in, or, instead of doing chips, do a natural vegetable, getting some grab and go options that you can have for snacks instead of like the things on the shelf. Maybe it's hard boiled eggs or jerky, or making your own snacks. You can make little protein muffins or things like using ingredients in making your own foods versus buying the food already processed. When you are making it yourself at home, yes, it takes a little bit of extra time, but you control what the ingredients are in it. So, I'm a big, big supporter of like meal prep and bulk cooking, because you can control what goes into your food when you're making it yourself at home. But you might not be a person who wants to slave away in the kitchen every day.
Right. Yeah.
So
I
if
do
you can
like
like make
that.
some extra and freeze it or like put it in the pantry, like definitely stock up on some of those things.
And have it in something that's easy to grab and go,
Oh
because
yeah.
that's really important. So, quick statistic, studies show that people who eat primarily whole foods experience 25 to 30% higher energy levels and lower anxiety and depression compared to those on high processed diets. And I, for myself, feel that to be true. So I
Yeah.
feel like when I eat things that are processed and I lean towards high sugar stuff,
Mhm.
my emotions are like, woo, it's a roller coaster. And, Kevin just hangs on for the ride. So let's talk about protein, carbs, and balance. How do you help clients figure out how much protein they actually need? And I want to tell you, you helped me tremendously because I was through the steps that I took to try to get healthier. I ended up on a carnivore diet because I was having so many reactions to all the vegetables I was trying to
Yeah.
add back in that the carnivore diet was a good fit for me, but I was struggling with getting enough protein. And so you really helped me with that. So tell me how you figure that out. I guess per person too. Like what's your
Yeah. It is a little different per person based on our size. So bigger people need more nutrients than smaller people. Kind of a rough place to start if you're trying to figure out like how much of my total grams of food should be protein is I like to recommend like around 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. So that would be like your ideal body weight. So if you, for example, are trying to lose some weight and you feel like you're a little bit heavier than what your ideal weight is, think about that ideal number on the scale and then do 1 gram per pound. Now, for a lot of people, especially if you're not used to eating a lot of protein, that's going to seem really high. And so, it takes a little bit of time to get yourself used to eating in that way where you're getting enough protein. And for women in particular, protein is so important. That is like our building block for muscle and metabolism. And so that's why we are like talking about this is like this is one of the key nutrients that we really need to focus on getting enough of and that most women don't. It's going to help with your body's repair system. So as it's like working through the day, at night it needs to repair itself. It needs those protein building blocks to do that. It's good for your hair, for your skin, hormone health, and your muscle mass depends on it. And so, if you're starting out and you're thinking, okay, my goal weight is maybe 150 pounds. I'm just going to throw a number out there. You might think 150 grams of protein, like I'm probably getting like 50 right now. So that might feel like that's not attainable in the beginning. But what you can do is just start adding a little bit more, so maybe start adding 20 grams extra per day. So, and protein is going to be found in meats, eggs, cheese. There's plenty of supplements, also protein powders and things like that. But those are kind of like the main big protein sources. It can get a little tricky because there's lots of foods that are a combination, like peanut butter, beans, things like that. But those don't necessarily have like a high percentage of protein compared to the calories. So as you're trying to add and boost your protein up, you want to be thinking about what are those food sources that are going to give me the biggest bang for my buck and that I'm not going to have to like blow out my calories to get to, or, like feel like I'm eating a ton of.
Yeah.
Because there's protein in broccoli, but I wouldn't say that's a good protein source.
Yeah, no. You'd have to eat a lot of
Yeah, you
broccoli.
would need a lot of broccoli and it would not be comfortable.
No, it would not. And no one
But
would want to
just
be around you.
yeah, adding in it could be one extra food item that you add in to start with. It's like, okay, I need to boost my protein in the morning, so I'm going to add Greek yogurt because that's a great high protein source. Or I'm going to add, a couple of scrambled eggs. Start with that, get your body used to that, and then boost it up again. And it could be portion size or it could be adding additional foods. Those are two of my favorite ways to boost up the protein content.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to tell you, I was a vegetarian for 2 years. So I've always leaned more towards vegetables. And when I was like suggested that I try the carnivore diet because of my inflammation, I was like, are you insane? I don't even like that much meat, right? Like, how am I going to eat all this meat? But listen to your bodies because I listen to my body and my body really, really likes steak.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm a rancher, so I can eat a lot of steak, but I like that and hamburgers. And I don't know, those two things, they keep me full longer and I'm not craving, I'm not wanting carbs, all those things. But we're all different. So
Mhm.
let's talk about understanding diets. And when we're talking about diet, I think you and I are both using it as a good word. It's just everything we put in our mouth is a diet.
Mhm.
So it's not like we're talking about eating and putting restrictions on what we're eating because we're trying to lose weight. We're talking about some different choices in how you eat and what you put in your mouth. So tell me the difference between like keto, carnivore, Mediterranean, and balanced eating styles and what your preference is.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. So when we talk about it, we're like we want to get rid of that negative connotation of it being a bad thing to talk about because we do need to have some parameters for what we eat. And so what each of those different ones that you mentioned are, those are just different eating styles that have certain parameters so that you have some guidelines to follow. Because,
Right.
with nutrition, it really can't be a free for all. It can't just be like eat whatever you want, whenever you want, because you won't end up feeling good. And you have to kind of listen to your body, like we mentioned before, and see what feels best and works best for you. So each of those different things that you mentioned, those different diets, they just have different guidelines for which types of foods are preferred or what the balance of the macros are. So macros are like carbs, fats, and proteins. And so, for example, the keto and carnivore are both kind of similar, but they are lower carb diets. And so with keto, it's a higher fat, moderate protein, low carb combination of foods. The idea is with the higher fat that your body starts deciding it's going to want to burn fat rather than burning carb energy. With carnivore, it's like, and you can talk more about this than I can because you've lived it.
Yeah.
But it is animal products, so like no fruits, no vegetables. It's easy to follow. It's a good one if you really are struggling with inflammation or autoimmune issues because you can kind of work it in as a way to do an elimination diet so that you can reintroduce over time some of those foods that maybe could be causing some of those issues. It's easy to follow because it's so limited. And then there's Mediterranean, which is kind of a variety of healthy fats, lots of veggies, fresh ingredients, fish, proteins, simple proteins. So that's kind of like a balance. It's very typical in like Greece or Italy, which actually I just went to Greece and Italy this summer for family vacation. It was amazing.
So
And the food
jealous. I'm
was,
so
I
jealous.
know, I was like, I didn't gain any weight and I ate like crazy. And it was the fresh whole foods and that Mediterranean balance was amazing. Um, and then my personal preference and what I usually teach with my clients is balanced eating. And, that usually includes a little bit higher protein content, but a balance of fats and carbs. Everything is really just about moderation with that. So, you can have a little bit of whatever works for you, whatever you enjoy, but within moderation. And, long term, that for me, for most clients, tends to work the best over your lifetime to have that balance. Where some of the other diets, they are great for the purpose but maybe not as easy to maintain for the rest of your life. So yeah, I
Right.
know with you with the carnivore diet, like that was out of necessity. And, I think it really was helpful and the right move for you. So when we were talking and working together, like I wasn't going to tell you, oh, no, don't do carnivore.
Yeah.
Because, for you, based on where your body was at and what you needed to try to figure out for your health, that was the best option. So I needed to support you as your coach and support person through that process of kind of beginning to introduce new foods and seeing where you're at with that.
Right. And that was very helpful. And I still like I mean I eat higher protein, but I
Mhm.
do try to add in vegetables, but I'll add in and I'll do well and I'll and I'll eat it and then I'll eat something else and I don't do well. And then I'm like, I'm just going to do carnivore for a couple of days, reset my body, and then I'll try again. And so it's just still a hit or miss, but
Mhm.
definitely listening to my body and figuring it out. And I know that I will always probably eat higher protein, higher fat, and limited carbohydrates, more vegetables and fruits. I will do those things, but I just have to slowly work them back in. But and I think that that's important too, is like anything that you can be consistent with for the rest of your life, because that's one thing that when I was health coaching was the ultimate goal is to get you, like if you need to lose weight, that's great. You do have to cut calories. You do have to really watch what you're eating, and you have to set your goals, stick to your goals, and have this window of time that you want to get it done, and give yourself grace the whole time, because we're all make mistakes and slip
Oh
ups.
yeah.
I'm a sugar holic, and I can't even say recovering, but but I really try hard not to eat sugar. I try healthier choices of sugars. But anyways, I digress. But you're need to do something that's sustainable for the rest of your life. What you'd want to do is eat in a way that you can train yourself to prepare food and buy food, and because it all starts at the grocery store,
Yep.
and do all the things and be able to do that for the rest of your life, because that's what the goal should be. You don't want to be a diet yo-yo, up and down, up and down, up and down, or do something
Yeah.
crazy for short term and then don't make any health changes.
Right. And I
um
think a lot of times with diets, especially the trending ones, those fad diets, as we'll call it,
yeah,
they pop up, they're miserable, it's not sustainable, like you're cutting out things that you really don't want to cut out for life.
yeah,
And I think with any form of eating, you need to be I mean, it may not be joy all the time, but it needs to be enjoyable, because that's part of the experience of food. And,
yeah,
food is a daily part of your life, multiple times per day. It needs to be as easy as possible, too. And,
right.
so getting into the habit of changing your food choices, changing your eating habits, paying attention to those things, it takes time. It's something that is a lifetime, I think, battle for a lot of people because it's so constant in our lives. It's multiple times a day that you're having to make those choices. And so, keeping it simple and, keeping some of those core um, just standards, I think, for food,
Hmm.
like that's really the easiest way to look at it when you're looking at your diet. What are the standards that I have here? Am I going to put the junk in or am I going to put the high quality stuff in?
Right.
And obviously you're going to feel better when you have the better quality foods.
Yeah. And if you don't know what the better quality foods is, then just research, because look up
Yep.
the Mediterranean diet. Look up, hey, there's great recipes on carnivore and keto friendly. You can Google search that. Use
Mhm.
Chat GPT. Say
Yes,
what,
definitely.
yeah, some recipes for this, that, and the other. So I take carnivore recipes and expand them and add like spaghetti squash to it. Or for my family, expand it and make different things. So, just research and try to figure out what works best for you. And menu plan. I think
Yes.
you encourage that as well. Like make a menu, plan what you're going to do for the week or the 2 weeks, whatever you want, because to me that's the hardest, is trying to think of what that feels like so much effort, so much work just to think about. If somebody walked up to me and said, "Hey, will you make me XYZ?" I would be like, "Yes." Right now. But when it's like, "What's for dinner?" I'm like, I don't know. Why do I got to be the one that thinks about it? So
Yeah.
menu plan, because then you can plan out your groceries, go to the grocery store, and hopefully, choose something like Mary said, look on the back of the box if it's from a box or whatever ingredients you're buying, and check the ingredients and make sure that there's the smallest amount of ingredients and no added sugar.
Yep. Yeah, and when you are shopping and you have a plan, it's so much easier to eat healthy whole foods because you have the list in front of you. You're getting the things on the checklist. You're filling your basket with those good things. You're crowding out the room for the other stuff. So going to the store with intention, like already having the plan, having thought about what you want those foods to be, it's going to make it easier for you so you don't just throw random junk into the cart, which, as you're going up and down the aisles and you're like, oh, okay, that looks good. Let me throw that in. It's usually not the good stuff.
It's usually not, especially if
Yeah.
you're hungry. Never go to the
Yeah.
grocery store hungry. We
It's
all
like
know that
have
one.
a list, start on the outside perimeter of the grocery store too,
Yes.
because that's where your whole foods are going to be. They're going to be in the refrigerated sections and freezer sections. So start with that, fill your cart with the fresh ingredients, work your way through the meats and the cheeses. And, as you're going around the grocery store on the outside, your cart's starting to fill up. You're running out of time for shopping and then hit the center last because then it's like, gosh, I got to get the heck out of the grocery store and I don't have enough time and I'm out of money. And so the Doritos are staying on the shelf.
I love it. I love that. Yes, it's definitely save the chip up for last.
Chip, chips are last. Maybe you'll forget about it by the time you get ready to go.
Exactly, because they're just horrible. They're so tasty, but they're just not good for you.
I
And
love them.
remember that whatever you do as far as your nutrition and eating healthy, whether it's for weight loss, whether it's just to be stronger, to live longer, to have your life look a little healthier, to feel better, whatever, it all starts with the grocery cart. It
Mhm.
doesn't start with you're at home because all that stuff came into your home from you shopping or someone else in your family shopping. So stop it in the cart.
Definitely. Well, and I think we sometimes forget that we're the masters of what goes into our body. You
Yes.
as the person have the control and the say over what you're going to buy, what you're going to bring into your house, what you're going to pick up and eat. Yes, there is so many temptations out there, and I'm not trying to discredit that at all because it is tough. And
Yes.
it's like a constant, like we're just inundated with things to choose from. And that's, I think, what makes it really hard for this particular generation of people who are shopping is that there is so many options out there, but like you are the one who decides. And when you make the choice shopping, that's what brings it into your home. And then when it's in your home, you're like
Kind of
what
eat it.
in your environment will affect your choices.
Yeah.
So fill that with those healthy whole foods, the fresh ingredients, fresh fruit, fresh veggies, healthier versions of the products. And that's what you'll eat because that is in your environment.
Yeah. And back to your meal prepping too. If you do a
Yeah.
bulk meal prepping and have it all ready, you'll grab those things first.
Yeah, let me tell you, because there is so many times when I have gone to the grocery store and you get all the great fresh veggies or whatever, and then you just throw them in the drawer. You don't wash them and prep them. And what happens?
You forget
Go
about
back.
them.
Yeah, you go back a week later and they're all nasty. It's like as soon as you get home, you got to wash them, prep them, get them in little baggies, even like just things you can grab and throw in your purse when you go. I mean, that makes such a difference. It might be 10 minutes of work when you get home, but then you're using it. It's easy to grab. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to prep anything. That
Yeah,
forethought, I mean, it's a huge, huge help with
it
making the
is.
choice.
It is. Well, so in closing, let's talk really quick about it. It's not about perfection. It's more about an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time you nourish your body with what it truly needs, and 20% of the time you enjoy life's little treats guilt-free. And I think giving yourself grace and being like, because I feel like we stress out over that sometimes if we, have a little something that we feel like we shouldn't, then we sit there and guilt ourselves. And then I feel like our body says, okay, store that. We're storing that and placing it somewhere because you're upset about it. So obviously, body's going to be upset about it, and we're just going to hide it in your fat cells. So that's my that's my comedy version, right?
Yeah.
And I also think that the goal isn't a smaller body; it's a stronger, clearer, more energized life. Like I'm wanting to do longevity.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
right?
I really think that that balance, that 80-20, is a great way to look at it because, most of the time we want that consistency. And so, that 80%, maybe not 80% all the time. Maybe it's kind
Right.
of shifting one way. Sometimes you're a little bit more like 90-10, 90% good foods, 10% fun foods or crazy foods or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's other times when you need to shift the other direction too. And I think that's okay to have that pendulum swinging a little bit. But the 80-20 just gives you that idea that this is about balance. It's about fueling your body mostly with what it needs because what you're putting on the inside with your nutrition is going to be reflected on what you can put out to the world. So, if you're feeling healthy, you have good energy, your digestion's good, your recovery's good, like all those good things are happening because of what you're putting into your body is mostly good. You're then going to be able to give more. You're going to be able to be a better mom, a better spouse. You're going to have energy to feel the world with more of that positive personality that you're putting out there, right? Because you're
Right.
feeling good on the inside. And, the other thing is that 20%, like, even though it might not be the best for what your body feels like on the inside, there's also so much more to nutrition and to food than just the nutrients because with us as humans, there's so much that is tied to the emotional side of it, right? So there's the family recipes, the human connection where it's a social setting, the special events, like your favorite things that you're going to go have with friends. Like a lot of those emotional ties and connections that we have are also associated with our foods. And that 20%, like that is life, that is your experiences. And you don't want to be so restricted or so worried about messing up that then you're missing out on the fun in life and you're missing out on that connection because that is what you're putting out in the world and that's going to feed your soul, not just your body.
I
So,
love that. That was beautiful. What a great way to close. And then we're going to give you a little bit of homework. So try to take a recipe you love and swap it for with a healthy substitution. Like I was talking about spaghetti squash or zucchini noodles, whatever. And you can look it up on the internet. Ask ChatGPT, right, Mary?
ChatGPT will tell you anything you want.
Exactly. I love it. Menu plan, pay attention to what is in your cart and try to trade out the box of highly processed foods for fresh foods would be your all-time goal, but start little baby steps.
Mhm.
So, all right. Well, thank you for your time, Mary. I really appreciate it. I did have the record button on, so we are good to go.
All right, we did it.
We did
Thank you so much
it.
for having me.
Okay. Thank you. And to everyone out there, stay empowered.